There was a time when a ransom was paid in land, or silver, or livestock. And then something changed. Value shifted from goods to human leverage. And money became a bargaining chip for life itself. Before suitcases filled with cash, before anonymous bank transfers, before cryptocurrency, ransom did not begin as a crime. It began as redemption. The word ransom comes from the Old French word rançon, which meant payment for release, and even earlier from the Latin word redemptio, to buy back, to redeem, to restore freedom through payment. For most of history, ransom was not secretive. It was not whispered. It was structured, recognized, expected, in some cases even honorable. In medieval Europe, war did not always end in death. It often ended in negotiation. Nobles captured on the battlefield were worth more alive than dead. A knight in armor represented years of training, land ownership, family alliances, and political leverage. Killing him ended the story. Ransoming him extended it. Captured nobles were often treated carefully, fed, sheltered, kept alive, because their freedom had value, and that value could be measured in gold. One of the most famous examples was King Richard the Lionheart. In 1192, he was captured while returning from the Crusades. The Holy Roman Emperor demanded a ransom, an enormous one. Historians estimate it equaled roughly 2 to 3 times England's annual income at the time. An entire kingdom mobilized to pay for one man's release. Taxes were raised. Church treasures were melted down. Silver was collected across the land, because freedom had a price. And money, in its earliest powerful form, became leverage. But ransom did not always involve kings. Merchants were ransomed, sailors were ransomed, communities were ransomed. In some regions, piracy was less about destruction and more about negotiation. Ships were seized, crews were held, letters were sent, payment was arranged, and once the money was transferred, release followed. It was transactional, cold, but structured. At this stage in history, ransom payments were rarely made in paper money. Paper currency was not yet dominant. Instead, payments were made in gold, silver, land rights, livestock, or valuable goods. Money was heavy, visible, physical. Transporting ransom often required caravans, guards, wagons. Risk traveled with the payment. And because of that, ransom was public. Communities knew when it happened. Negotiations were rarely anonymous. Everything began to shift as money itself evolved. By the 17th and 18th centuries, paper currency became more widespread. Banking systems expanded, trade networks grew, and money became lighter, more portable, more divisible. A large payment no longer required a chest of metal. It required paper, and paper could be hidden, carried quietly, delivered discreetly. As currency became more flexible, so did leverage. At the same time, literacy was spreading. Printing presses were common, postal systems were improving, paper was affordable, and with those systems in place, something new became possible. The ransom note, a written demand, direct, clear, specific. A letter that transformed human life into a financial transaction. The note did something powerful. It separated the demand from the physical presence of the captor. It allowed negotiation at a distance, and distance created anonymity. By the early 20th century, ransom notes were increasingly associated with criminal kidnapping. Newspapers amplified the phenomenon. High-profile cases drew national attention, and one object became iconic: the envelope. Inside it, a letter. Sometimes handwritten, sometimes typed, often assembled from newspaper clippings to conceal handwriting. The message was consistent: deliver money or face consequences. In these moments, currency was no longer just a medium of exchange. It was a bargaining chip for human life. There is something revealing about how ransom evolved alongside money. In medieval times, the value of a person was tied to land and lineage. In early modern times, value shifted toward metals and coin. In industrial societies, value condensed into paper. And in the digital age, value exists as code. Today, ransom no longer requires a physical note. It can arrive as an email, a text message, or malicious software. Ransomware locks digital systems and demands cryptocurrency. The method has changed, but the logic remains the same: payment in exchange for release. And perhaps that is why ransom endures, because money endures. As long as currency exists as a trusted store of value, it can be demanded. As long as people believe money restores balance, it can be leveraged. Ransom is not separate from financial history. It is embedded within it.